Kia ora koutou. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for being here today. Tēnā tātou katoa, ko kotarangi te whakapaparanga mai, engari ko waikanai te whenua tupu, ko kapiti te kāinga, ko kapiti mō te re te maonga, e ru nei taku nāko, ko rokoa moana te moana e mahua nei aku maharahara, ke te whanganui a tāra o e noho ana, he kai whakahaere kaupapa o e irirangi te motu, ko Chantelle ho, tēnā tātou katoa. Hello everyone, I'm Chantelle, the Program Director for the Game Development Sector Rebate at New Zealand On Air, and joining me today is the wonderful Toby.
Tēnā tātou katoa. Ko folks kauta te maunga, ko dele te awa, no hamene a hao, ko las toko whānau, ko Toby toko ingoa. Hi everyone, I'm Toby, I'm the GDSR Program Manager. And on behalf of all of us at NZ On Air, it's wonderful to be back here with you at NZGDC. 2 years ago, Irirangi Te Motu stood on this stage to introduce the New Zealand Game Development Sector Rebate, a program designed to give the NZ games industry the stability and confidence it needed to grow. And today, we get to share what's happened since. And yes, there will be plenty of data, but before we dive into the graphs and percentages, let's set the tone. Because this talk is not really about numbers, it's about all of you.
Every data point represents someone in this building. A programmer who stayed in New Zealand instead of moving overseas. An artist who found their first industry job. A creative studio that decided to take a risk and make something original.
Can we move the slide, please? So, as we move through the data today, we invite you to see it not just as a report, but as a collection of human stories. Because that's what's really at the heart of this program. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. It's the people.
And at the end, we'll also make time for some korero in the Q&A section. So if there's anything you'd like to ask or explore, we'll pick that up once we've wrapped up our talk. We're just going to check these slides. Yeah, okay, great. So let's go ahead and start by setting the scene. From 2022 to 23, growth in the New Zealand games industry had slowed dramatically. Annual revenue growth had declined to only 7%, the lowest in a decade. And at the same time, Australia had introduced its own incentives, which made it harder for New Zealand studios to compete for investment and for talent. We were at risk of losing skilled people offshore and of holding back our own creative ambitions. The Game Development Sector Rebate was introduced to change that. Its purpose was to give studios the stability and help to create the conditions for sustainable growth.
So, 2 years in, what do we see? Across the board, the data shows meaningful growth. And not just in one area, but in GDSR participation, revenue, jobs, and the number of games in development. And when we look at it together, it paints a picture of an industry that is maturing and gaining resilience. In 2024, 33 studios qualified for the rebate. This year, that number has risen to 40. That's an increase of almost a quarter in just 1 year. And more importantly, it tells us that more studios are now reaching the required scale and capability to apply for the rebate. That's a signal of real progress in the overall health of our local industry.
Back in 2023, before the rebate was introduced, the industry generated $434 million in revenue. By 2024, when the rebate started, that grew to $548 million. And the most recent data just announced this morning shows that revenue is now tracking just under $760 million. That's a growth of a whopping 38% in 1 year. But to put that into perspective, global industry revenue grew by just 2% last year. So while the world was slowing down, the New Zealand games industry has been accelerating.
Last year, experts forecasted that the GDSR cohort would grow by 8%. And now we can share that it has increased by an incredible 20%, from 1,079 to just under 1,300 full-time equivalent employees. Compared to last year, the fastest growing departments are game design and programming. And taking into account the revenue generated by these studios this year, we see that each GDSR eligible employee is associated with more than $500,000 in revenue. It's a powerful reminder that these aren't just jobs, they are high-value, expert-led creative roles that bring significant economic benefit and cultural impact to Aotearoa.
The number of eligible games has also grown significantly, from 145 last year to 170 in development this year. That's a 17% increase, with 25 more games being made. And of these 170 games, we can now share that an incredible 144 are original IP. Each one represents fresh ideas, bold risks, and new opportunities for audiences to connect with stories made right here in New Zealand. As per the graph on the right, many of our studios are global leaders in the PC space, the fastest growing platform worldwide. But the opportunities don't stop there. We're seeing renewed momentum in mobile, steady growth in console, and entirely new platforms that give even the smallest studios the chance to reach audiences around the world.
On top of all that, we can see the reinvestment from studios is increasing. Total eligible expenditure has grown by 16% compared to 2024, and within that, 3 studios more than doubled their spend. That kind of reinvestment signals confidence that studios are hiring, scaling up, and taking on more ambitious projects because they can see a more sustainable path forward. Employee costs still make up the bulk of game development expenditure, and that underlines the industry's ability to generate more jobs for New Zealanders. But it hasn't been without its challenges, of course. A small number of studios have reported redundancies in the past year, and that mirrors what we're seeing globally with a wider downturn in publisher sentiment. In New Zealand, however, these instances luckily remain more isolated than elsewhere.
And the broader trend is still very positive. Overall, revenue is rising, jobs are growing, and production pipelines are expanding as the sentiment in the industry is becoming a bit more hopeful about the future. Rebate and code funds have helped stabilise many New Zealand studios over the last 2 years, so the growth phase may have only just begun. These quotes on screen remind us that behind every graph are real choices being made by studios about hiring, training, and business development. Taken together, the story is one of building blocks stacking higher, studios scaling up, jobs expanding, pipelines filling, and reinvestment strengthening the base. It's a foundation that shows the industry isn't just busy, it's building something lasting. It all points in the same direction, a games industry that is growing in a way that is ambitious but sustainable, with people at the centre. And while the numbers tell us the scale of growth, it's the stories that tell us what that growth looks like in practice.
For example, earlier this year, Splitting Point, a small studio in Nelson, relaunched a Roblox game called Grow a Garden. It became the most played game in a single moment in history, surpassing even Fortnite. And that moment wasn't just about numbers on a server. It was about a Kiwi team proving they could lead on a global stage, and about a young founder, Jansen Madsen, whose journey began as a teenager tinkering in Roblox Studios, who is now recognized by Forbes Asia as one of the top 30 under 30 in tech. Or Grinding Gear Games, who launched Path of Exile 2 in early access late last year to much success. In its first month, the game attracted over 42 million hours of live stream viewing, and just as importantly, the studio has continued to grow locally, creating high-skilled jobs that grow our capability here in New Zealand.
Or Deepfield Games, who launched Abiotic Factor into early access and then 1.0 in the last couple of months. It's sold more than 1.4 million copies, an incredible achievement from a small team at the bottom of the world. And Playful, a brand new New Zealand-based playtesting service founded by the team at Insight Creative, launching today at NZGDC with a booth just outside. It is one of many stories made possible by the ecosystem now taking shape around the country. And these examples remind us that growth isn't just an abstract idea. It's visible in the games being made, the players reached, and the recognition being earned by New Zealand studios around the world.
You can also see it in the choices studios are making about how they look after their people and how they strengthen the communities around them. For many, that has meant lifting salaries so that people can stay in New Zealand, creating mentorship and training opportunities, and opening new roles for team members that are just starting out. Others have poured energy into prototyping bold new ideas, building internal tools, or preparing their games for international release. When you put all of that together, it creates something much bigger than individual studios. It adds up to a stronger, more connected games industry that supports not only the people working today, but the generation coming through behind them.
And we're beginning to see how those ripples reach far beyond the industry itself. Maitona has recently partnered with Westlake Boys High School to co-design a game development course, opening up a pathway for students who might now imagine a future in games. Game devs across the country have been lecturing at local universities, supporting grassroots game development initiatives with our tamariki, and encouraging young wahine to picture themselves in this space. In West Auckland, one of the founders of Grinding Gear is now helping establish a brand new school with a focus on STEAM. Science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths, that version of STEAM. These stories are proof that when the games industry is doing well, the benefits ripple outwards, strengthening not only the creative work we produce, but our communities.
And when we step back from the local stories to look at the big picture, the progress here becomes even clearer. Global growth in 2024 and 25 slowed to just over 2%. And in some of the biggest markets, it even went backwards. During this tough year, studios worldwide were tightening belts, shelving projects, and facing uncertainty. In the UK, one of the largest games industries in Europe, growth dipped by nearly 2%. Finland, with a population similar to ours, has seen its industry contract by almost 5% last year. And yet, during the same period, New Zealand's games industry grew by 38%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
In a moment when the global narrative was one of mass redundancies and slowdown, Aotearoa has become a place of momentum and resilience. Studios here aren't only weathering the global headwinds, they're finding ways to grow, to create new games, and to give back to their communities.
So where do we go to from here? At the current rate of growth, New Zealand is on track to reach $1 billion in industry revenue by as early as 2027. Now, we know that games industry might not follow neat financial forecasts, considering it's driven by release schedules, and we know that one or two major releases can affect the curve significantly. However, even allowing for that natural ebb and flow, the direction is unmistakable.
The industry's strength and focus on original IP development continue to lead the way. That ability to create our own stories is what gives New Zealand independence and resilience. When studios here own the stories they tell, the possibilities multiply. A game can become the seed for so much more. Music collaborations, crossovers into film and television, live events, and partnerships across media. And we're already seeing this happen, but it's only the beginning. Opportunities also sit in education and community. When high schools are creating game development courses and industry figures are stepping in as guest lecturers, that's not just about teaching skills, it's about growing the next generation of creators. A teenager in Gisborne who downloads Godot today could be the founder of tomorrow's breakout success. A class in West Auckland learning about coding and design could be the spark that launches a whole new studio in a few years' time.
So the opportunities ahead aren't only commercial, they're cultural, educational, and communal. They're about building a games industry that contributes not just to the GDP, but to the creative lifeblood of Aotearoa and its place in the world. So what makes the New Zealand games industry special? At the heart of it all, it's the people. Every number we've shared today represents someone, a graduate stepping into their first role, a team taking a risk on a new game, a studio giving back to its community. And when you put those stories together, they show us something powerful. That Aotearoa is not just making games, we're building a creative legacy.
So, to close us out, as we heard from Minister Reti this morning, the GDSR Year 2 review is now available online for you to read, and it confirms the rebate is working effectively. And amazingly, the GDSR is now funded in perpetuity, which means the program is set to continue beyond 2027. From here, the Ministry of Business will continue to monitor in collaboration with us for the Year 4 review. And as far as timelines are concerned, registrations for the GDSR will be open from 20th of January in 2026 through to the 27th of February. Now, the registration may be a quick form to fill in, but it is a required step to later apply for the rebate, so do keep that in mind. And then applications will be open from 1st of April for 6 weeks again. In the end, studios can then expect payments in July or August of next year.
Now, we know a presentation like this only scratches the surface. There's a lot more detail behind the numbers, and every studio will have its own specific questions or experiences. So as well as Q&A here in the room, we'll also be hosting a drop-in session after this talk at 10:55. There'll be a chance for you to come by, ask questions, and have one-on-one conversations with us and our team. Team, do you want to have a wee wave? Reluctant, there we go. If you're looking to apply for the rebate for the first time, it's a really great place to start. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Now, let's dive into Q&A. Any questions? It's always hard asking a room full of Kiwis to put their hands up. We're just going to wait for the microphone, I'm sorry. Because they record this for YouTube, they need to hear your question on the recording.
I heard down the grapevine that this might...
It's on. Is it on?
It's great.
Okay.
Hello.
There we go.
All right, it's working. I heard down the grapevine that this additional funding might also affect code.
Oh, yes, this morning the minister said that they're doubling code's budget.
Woo!
Yeah, so that was at 8:40, and I know that most game devs aren't up at that time. So you might have missed that announcement, but they have doubled the code fund, which they more than doubled it.
225 to 5, so it's actually an additional 2.75.
There we go, 2.75 million now going towards code, which is awesome, because that team also, I think, is going to burn out if they keep doing everything they're doing. They're so incredible. Any other questions? Anyone want to do a deep dive into a rebate? Yeah, yeah. At the front here, we'll just bring you the microphone.
Thank you. I just had an idea of, would you suggest education institutes actually make a studio for their students? Or...
Actually, I've had that very conversation with one educational institute where it was actually something I had when I did design school years ago. My university at the time had set up a studio for students to work in when they graduated, and it gave them a lot of real world experience. They worked with real clients, and then actually meant they could put something on their CV. So part of the work that Toby and I are doing to support the ecosystem is actually catching up with different education providers and talking about ways they can help students actually get into the industry, and that was one of them that just came up. And I can't share if they seemed really excited about the idea and they're going to try and do it, but I can't share who it was yet.
That's all good. Okay, cool. I'll pop over to the thing after for SAT.
Any other questions? Great. Okay, well, we might leave it there, and if you have some deep dives that you want to get into, or if you are looking to apply for the rebate for the first time or just wanting some economic information, feel free to pop by and say hi to our team. We don't bite. We're very friendly at 10:55, and yeah, we can release you early for morning tea if you like. You get 5 minutes back. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.